Well, obviously Saturday had its own set of issues, so Sundays are never as fun as they were the previous week. So the thing I stressed to those guys just as much as we did after our victory, though, there had to be great teaching, great learning, great acceptance from all parties involved. So we spent yesterday going through those corrections. At the end of it, I bring them back together and have a little review of everything: offense, defense, special teams. Talk about a few coaching points, and then turn the page and jump into our Virginia prep. So, unlike the result of the two different Saturdays, the Sundays almost have to be the same, right? So, like, you have to understand to get where we want to be in the end. We just need to keep moving forward. Obviously, the result on Saturday night wasn't the same, but the effects of what we have to do on Sunday are exactly the same. So, one of the things I encouraged them is, I thought after success, they had open ears and had a good week of practice. So after defeat, they had to have the same process to move forward. So thought they handled it yesterday fairly well from an injury standpoint. Still waiting on a couple things. We obviously haven't practiced. Won't practice till tomorrow morning. So we'll have a better understanding post practice Tuesday, Wednesday. The plan is right now. Obviously, Brandon Peters, I'm sure, is a big question everybody's asking. He didn't go through practice drills last week, but he will this week. So that part will be out there. Whether or not he's available on Saturday will to be determined yet. He hasn't fully cleared to take contact. So as we go forward, that's where we're at there. A couple guys got banged up. We still haven't had a final determination with Keith. So obviously a good player that nothing significant. He's not gone for the season. It's just a matter of how well his body recovers to come back for us this week or the following weeks thereafter. So we turn our attention to Virginia. Have tremendous respect for Coach Mendenhall. He and I have known each other for quite a while. Kind of have a lot of the same beliefs, same thoughts. As I began to understand their preparation last spring, really looked into what their program, followed a lot of their news feed, and he has three core principles that marry a lot of the same things that we do. You hear it repeatedly a lot from their players. He obviously took over a program at Virginia. Has really turned the tide there. I believe they're 18-2 in their last 20 home games, so they're doing a tremendous job at home, which we're traveling to for the first time as a staff with our group of players. So a tremendous task in front of us. I think offensively, they played 4 different quarterbacks on Saturday, and it sounds like they plan to do the same throughout. They kind of have a quarterback package, and they have a little bit of a different offset Wildcat-type package that he calls those guys football players, and that's exactly what they are. Offensively, I think they're led by their slot receiver, number 4, Billy. You hear him talk about him quite a bit in his press conferences. He's a guy that embodies everything that they believe in. And on the flip side, defensively, Bronco's a defensive guy by nature and a guy that takes a lot of pride in the way that group plays. Their free safety, number 29, I believe his name is Joey Blunt. All right, he is a very, very talented player, kind of controls everything. You can see they play better when he's in charge out there. So have some new specialists, have a transfer in from Florida as their punter, a couple other transfers, one on defense side of the ball, tight end on offense. So they kind of, like us, have sprinkled in a handful of transfers that have affected their game for this year. So very excited about the challenge. I think our guys will buy into the week of preparation. We'll see where we can go from there.
I mean, you haven't practiced yet, but it sounded like last Monday maybe Chase Brown would have been likely to play on Saturday. Did you have a setback throughout the course of the week?
No, Chase is he will be cleared. He'll be good to go this week. At least he is into Tuesday's practice. So foreseeing any issues going into the week, which I don't think will be, he'll be cleared.
Bret, we talked a lot about football 101. You talked to your guys yesterday. Was there some of that stuff that when you looked at the tape from Saturday that needed to be talked about?
Just about, the football 101 covers a lot of different things. We talk about everything from first down to fourth down, situational football. I let the captains after the game kind of speak on our behalf. It wasn't really guys that played less, more, anything else. I just thought at a time like that, early on in our development as a program with us as coaches, those captains have really embodied everything that we've asked them to do, and I couldn't be more impressed when I read the media on Sunday, kind of what they said from, I think, Velo talked about how we practice for that end of game scenario every play. I mean, every practice. Actually, we practice end of half on Tuesdays and end of game on Wednesdays and again on Thursdays. So they had walked through that scenario, to at the end of the game, that was probably the most glaring one, right? So we needed 2 scores, whether it be a touchdown and a field goal or 2 touchdowns would obviously give us victory, but I know we needed at least 10 points. So to be right there at the end of the game, we had a very makeable field goal. One of the things that gets lost in this performance, kind of disappointed he didn't get anything from a Big Ten recognition, but James McCourt, kicked himself into history on Saturday. But as is the case, you don't hear about those through defeat. So that kind of went bypassed everybody. But he'd hit a 53 and a 52-yarder already. But the biggest hit of the day was obviously, I believe, a 34-yarder, 32-yarder to put the game within a touchdown. Had three timeouts. Our guys had handled everything pretty good to that point, so I knew I had 3 timeouts. So made the decision to go for the makeable field goal. Back up, we obviously, UTSA put their hands team out on the field. We elected to kick every ball that McCourt had hit, he'd kicked out of the back of the end zone, so I'd even just made the decision to start the ball off on a 25-yard line with 3 timeouts. Our defense answered the call and gave it to our offense with a considerable amount of time, but no timeouts, and I believe we got over 10 plays in that scenario. So very, very excited the way they operated, efficiently handled it, but we bottom line didn't get in the end zone. The big play, obviously, was the offensive pass interference called that set us back yardage-wise and just timing-wise. That was the unforeseen, and that's a little bit of football 101, but that goes back to what we always talk about: penalties, mental errors, and turnovers were a big part. 2 penalties really hurt us significantly were the OPI, and then there was a holding call that was called late.
The schedule this week and next gets a little compressed each time with an early morning start and then a Friday night start next week. How does that impact your?
Yeah, great
overall
point.
game?
When we get the TV schedule out, I was a little nervous that the Virginia game was going to be. Obviously, the Maryland game had already been announced on a Friday night. Virginia was one of our further travel games. So I was a little nervous that it was going to be a night game. So I was actually excited. It's actually the earliest kickoff I've ever had as a head coach. It'll be 10 o'clock our time, 11 o'clock there. So got a blessing in disguise there. But one of the advantages to being in the NFL is we actually had to play Thursday night games every year. So I've been well versed in short week preparations, and that's with a game on Sunday. So you actually get a bonus day. The only alternative thing that will change next week, normally our players have Mondays off, but they will actually practice next Monday because we'll give them next Saturday off after the Maryland game.
First road game, Coach. Do you feel like having a veteran club helps deal with that a little better against the hostile crowd and the travel and all that stuff?
Yeah, but it's just so different for our guys. Like, obviously continuity is a big thing, but, I really didn't put a lot into what had been done in the past, right? Kind of like in my opening press conference, I don't really what's been in the past. I worry about what's ahead of us. But this was our first night game, so one of the things that we did is we stayed in the hotel and did things a little bit different compared to what they had in the past. And several of the players had made reference to how much they had appreciated that because they had actually come over 4 hours ahead of time, spent a lot of time here in the building. So there was some dramatic change even just with our home schedule compared to what we did. Length of the line I walk, length of timing, different things. So obviously we didn't have success last week, but I think our guys are understanding things are done differently. It's not, again, anything that's in the past. It's about what's in front of us. So I think as far as being on the road, it's going to be an early kickoff. I do like the fact that it's an early kickoff, so you just wake up and get going. We actually practice at 9 a.m. Central Time every day of the week, so it's actually very, very close to when we practice. So it's a possible advantage for us to be at that early kickoff.
What's the significance of in-season evaluation, game evaluation compared to maybe training camp? Like, how does that impact you guys as a coach?
You mean with our own team? Yeah. So self-scout is something we do every week. Offense, defense, special teams. I want to see what they see. Obviously, our opponent, what they try to take advantage of early in the game. Obviously, it was our second game where I can't believe we're already at game 3, right, out of a guaranteed 12. So to be approaching a quarter of the way into a season is silly to think about because it's just flown by. But we have to be aware of what our opponents see and what they possibly could do against us. On the flip side of it, even though it's just one game that we got from Virginia, and it was against an opponent that they scored a lot of points and held them to minimal defense, it does good for us to see on film what they've done a little bit because they have altered their path a little bit. But self-scout is very real, and it's something probably after game 4 I would think most coaches really buy into because at that point the film from this season takes a lot more precedence over film of last season.
make changes if you make any big changes?
Oh, no, we'll make changes. You obviously saw Josh McCray. You saw an increased awareness of number one in the game plan, DJ Barker in the game plan. Defensively, I think you saw some new defensive faces in there. Obviously, to lose C.J. Hart was a huge deal, so that was going to naturally bring transition at the linebacker position. And then obviously because Chase Hayden didn't play and Chase Brown, both of those guys were out of the running back room. But I had made a decision to start Jakari and go with those first couple plays. Actually on Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon, installed it. So that was new to the guys, but it really wasn't new to us as coaches.
Julian have some packages on the offensive line. Is there a thought to get him more involved with that five?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did early on in fall camp, Julian Pearl is a very, very, very talented, very long, very smart, great football IQ, good awareness. He's engaged. He really was a guy that was having a good fall camp. Went through a little 2-week phase of maybe not being as strong, and so we had a conversation. And last week he actually played, I believe, on 17 total snaps, and he had 5 knockdowns and 17 plays. So played effectively, very, very well. Although he hadn't been able to go through a full game or a full week of practice, Palcho played his best football as well. So now to get those guys incorporated, the plays you've been talking about have been like an extra lineman phase. So I think anything we can do to increase the amount of play of our better players is a good thing.
Is there a way to get them both on the field at the same time?
It's already happened. Yeah, but yeah, there's definitely again, not just at the offensive line, tight end, running back, wide receiver, and on the defense side of the ball, the more we can incorporate some of our players that have shown better. Josh McCray is a guy that, right, even though it was just 5 carries, he showed us some. I mean, he's really the guy that brought a little bit of juice when we were down by 14. That had an immediate impact not only on the guys on the field but the guys on the sideline.
Also, is that when you get behind early to try and come back instead of taking a lead early or having it be tied?
Yeah, anytime you can play from ahead, I would guess that most coaches would venture to say that's the best position to be in. Statistically, that's always going to be in your favor. But I told the guys, listen, I wouldn't be surprised. At some point early in the game, we faced a little bit of adversity, so I don't think it came as a shock to them. I knew that they were going to be amped up, ready to roll, and depending on how the cookie crumbled, there could be a chance we played from behind. Weren't shocked by it. I think they handled the moment. The big turn, the thing that was frustrating is right before the end of the half when we had that turnover. That play shouldn't have even happened. They had 2 guys in motion. So, but I told the guys, breaks are going to come our way. You just got to be able to handle those breaks when they come.
Some of the injuries in your opening statement. You mentioned Saturday Mike Epstein wasn't able to finish the game. Where's his status at, or is he still going through testing, or do you know yet?
I didn't know Mike didn't finish the game. Mike carried the ball, I guess, on the last third down play at the end of the game because of the protection issues and where we're at. He didn't finish. Mike is a guy that's been on a maintenance plan since we've been here. Before I got here, he had injuries. Also had surgery during the out of season. That's why he didn't join us till halfway through the summer. So Mike's just constantly in an evaluation process. We limit his number of opportunities both during the course of the week with maintenance and him, Palcho. There's probably 5 guys that are in that same boat. Yeah, so Chase, unfortunately, last Thursday, first time in my head coaching career, got stepped on and affected his ankle, so he was unable to go Saturday. But there's a really strong possibility of him coming this week.
Before the season, Tony talked a lot about having 5 running backs was great because those don't always end up being 5. And he's been in that situation. What would you kind of say? You've seen that group do as they've kind of had to shuffle things.
Yeah, so in the spring, we had obviously Chase Brown, Chase Hayden, Reggie Love, and Jakari Norwood. Josh McCray was not in that factor, and Mike Epstein was not in that factor. So during the course of the summer, you realized pretty quickly that Josh had talent. Obviously, Mike had shown on film. We just didn't know what he had brought to the table. So now you're actually in a situation where, you have 6, and then a guy like Jafar Armstrong would actually play running back at Notre Dame. 7 guys on your roster who look like they could play Division I football. So we just haven't had all those guys present for either one of these first 2 games. So, whatever number that ends up being, but I still feel very, very good about our running back numbers and the talents they have. They're all kind of a little bit different. And we'll just kind of, as coaches, I think we have to make sure we piece together a plan that takes advantage of each one of them.
Brandon obviously clearly won the quarterback job. When he's healthy, is he your starter?
I think that's a great situation or a great conversation when it becomes real. I don't, last week BP wasn't cleared. As of right now, he's practicing, but he's not cleared. So until that bridge comes, we'll cross when it comes. I think the best thing our players did, and the way the players commented during the course of the game and post game, they really rallied behind Art and what he does and the way he competitively fights. And obviously would have wished for a different result on Saturday, but I think everybody knows that everybody can play better on Saturday. And I think all of our guys rallied behind the quarterback, whether BP was in there or Art.
Obviously, Art's made a big impact already. Like, what have you seen from him 2 games?
Again, just a steady guy. He's locked into it. There isn't any, once he makes a decision, that decision is made. I did like the fact he gave us a couple first downs by running with a football. I don't think probably on the scouting report they have him labeled as a running quarterback, but he's able to convert and do some things there when the defense gives it to him. I think he's still, bottom line is, here's a guy that joined us midsummer when coaches weren't around him. Literally, the first time he could be around us as coaches is when we started fall camp, which was 3 weeks before the first game week. And then he went in the middle of the second quarter of, the opening game, right? So, I can't stress enough how much I've been impressed with him and also the guys that prepared him.
Okay, third down conversion was a big stat for you on Saturday, really on both sides of the ball. Is that something you're going to be emphasizing in practice, finishing and getting off the field on defense?
Yeah, I think obviously offensively, to get off or to stay on the field is a point of emphasis every week. We really categorize third down into, different phases based on yardage. We had a little bit of everything. We converted to 3rd and 1, which was huge on that first drive, and that actually gave us the opportunity to hit the wheel route to Deuce in the back of the end zone. Right, that came off of third down success. So the ones that we had failure on, obviously we never had a chance to get to that next first down call. Defensively, I think that we really had to take a look at what they were attacking, why they were attacking. I thought Ryan did a nice job of adjusting and getting it, on par better to what we needed on second down. In the second half. But bottom line, we don't want any of those conversions to happen, and they did in the first half for sure.
Obviously, you'd rather win the game, but is there things you can learn more from a loss for the players?
Well, there's just more of them, so the volume is bigger, right? Usually, if you lose a game, there's more things that you did wrong, right, or can be corrected. I know that as players, that's what I really challenged them with at the end of my meeting was there's, two things that can happen from a loss is obviously the start of a losing mentality or a string of losses, or the acceptance and the awareness to make sure they don't happen again, right? And I think our guys are hopefully going to be wired into that second phase a lot stronger because they're the only ones that make that decision.
Tony spoke to us after the game. He was talking about how he felt as leader of the secondary that he should shoulder. I guess it felt like he should shoulder most of that blame. As a coach, how do you, help him accept responsibilities for things that maybe he can improve on, but not accept too much to the point where it's overwhelming?
Who'd you say was?
Tony Adams.
Tony Adams. Yeah. Tony is I read his comments. I didn't read all of his comments, but I do know that he, immediately after the game, as well as yesterday in team meetings, it's just kind of how Tony's wired. He's a guy that's been around a lot. He takes a lot of pride in how he plays, but also how he helps the younger guys. I think, as the game went on, he played a lot better himself on Saturday, and he's a guy that is detail oriented. As soon as I started talking to him, when I tried to get him to come back, you could tell everything you say to him, he processes. Sometimes that is a very, very positive thing. Sometimes you just got to let stuff go a little bit. So I think everybody's going to take a step forward after Sunday, and I'm sure Tony will as well.
Bret Bielema out 20 years ago on Saturday with the 9/11 anniversary. Most of the guys in your roster, some of them weren't even alive.
Right.
Out of curiosity, what do you remember about the day for yourself?
Yeah.
With Iowa, and what, if anything, do you talk about?
Yeah, it was, I was sitting in a defensive staff meeting at the University of Iowa. We were getting ready to play Iowa State. Rob Smith, who's actually the defensive coordinator at Rutgers now, was one of our GAs, and he steps outside of the office. He came back in and told us what had happened to the first hour. And, as everybody just kind of looked around, we just stayed kind of, I don't know if we even took a coffee break, but I remember it was just kind of one of those moments. Everybody's looking around. Maybe we didn't understand the scope of what was really being said. Then I don't know how much longer it was. Rob again went back out and came back in and told us about the second tower and all that had preceded. And we kind of, I think, knew that day that something probably was going to change for that weekend. as it plays in front of us. I myself had a college roommate that I knew worked in that arena, so right away your thoughts went to those kind of moments. And then shortly thereafter, when the games were canceled, I just had a variety of different emotions and things that ran through your mind. You're dealing with young kids. At that time you didn't know what this meant in the bigger picture of global politics and all that went into it. So it was really just a surreal time. I remember that weekend being canceled. And then the next week, I think they actually allowed recruiting that weekend. And I remember Kirk saying something. There was just a strong memory in my mind about whether or not we wanted to travel. It was an option to travel and do some recruiting. And if you didn't want to travel by plane, he was good with that. So I even remember that moment like it was like yesterday. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. And one of the things we've tried to do since I've been here is, understand that this is bigger than just a football game, right? So we'll talk about holidays, we'll talk about memorials and different things that are in the bigger picture, and I'll ask kids to explain it, or I'll put it up on the board and talk about a history lesson, difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day and stuff like that. So it's something that we'll definitely take pause and mention as the week goes on.
When you do these Sunday evaluations, do you find that the communication, win or lose, whatever the result is pretty good?
Yeah, I was actually impressed. Our offensive communication by far was much better from game 1 to game 2. There weren't any issues that we had. Just a simple thing. It doesn't. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But at the end of the game, for us to be able to play the scenario out as we did, to have 3 timeouts, which means you didn't have to burn anything before then, was absolutely critical. And a million different things. Unfortunately, we had to go through. It was interesting, right? So we're playing Coach Mendenhall, and he took over. I believe it was in 2016, right, at Virginia. And I looked back at some of his articles throughout time, and then I've listened to a lot of his interviews. And he talked about he lost to a FCS team early in his first year there, and really described how that became a turning point where they moved their offices in the stadium, and he talked about protecting his home. And since that point, they've gone 18-2. And I thought about, as a coach in transition here, I had to endure that on Saturday. And as much as I didn't like it, or don't appreciate it, don't understand it, don't want to accept it, it's real. It happened, and if I ignore it like it never happened, it's never going to be something you can learn from. So we've definitely had to take that and move forward. And communication is something that, in my opinion, has to be ironed out before game day. If you wait to game day to figure those things out, then we're going to be in a world of trouble.
What I meant by communication, we heard a lot from Ryan today of, hey, that's my fault. I didn't put you guys in a good enough spot. Like, do the players appreciate that, hey, the coach is evaluating themselves?
I never give our coordinators how to talk to their players. I listen to them. With the way our meeting rooms are structured out, there's a team meeting room and there's a defensive meeting room. So I went into the offensive meeting room and listened to Coach Peterson talk to the offensive players. So obviously I didn't listen to Tony. I know Ryan is a very conscientious, very detailed, very prideful. Probably one of my favorite hires since coming here. Just the fact that I think I share a thought process with him that is very similar, even though we're a little bit different in age, totally different backgrounds. I just really appreciate how he handles his business. And I know from the moment we walked off the field to where we are today, he said that repeatedly to me. But I think the players appreciate, in this world that we're in right now more than anything, I think they appreciate honesty and sincerity. As a coach, if you just turn the fingers, and point them at them, you're never going to get anywhere. I think you have to accept anything responsibility-wise. And as a head coach, I do the same.
How do you think Isaiah's adjusted to, a quarterback who's able to see the entire defense? How do you think he's adjusted to making plays? We can't see the entire defense, but he has to make a play with the defense kind of bearing down on him.
A lot of you guys know Isaiah longer than I have, right? So I've been around him since, basically January. I met him briefly in December. But Isaiah is a very aware, very present, very in tune with a lot of things that aren't just in front of him. So I think you're exactly right. The more football he learns at the wide receiver position, is only going to benefit us. But like I told him last year after the first practice he had at wide receiver, I know we're going to get the question like, hey, you wasted all this time playing quarterback, right? And that's the complete opposite, right? For all the years he played quarterback, he learned how to read coverages, understand leverages. 2 of the most critical plays he made on Saturday was he understood where the defense was and where he needed to get and make adjustments off of it. The more he has relationship with BP and Art and RJ, he can't throw the ball to himself, right? There's plays where he's going to play quarterback, but the more relationship he has with the quarterbacks and understands that, that's only going to help him moving forward. And then just the pure art of catching the ball, right? Avoiding tackles in the open space. Like he hadn't really, as a quarterback, you're always coming at the defense. As a receiver, all of a sudden you're getting, tackles from a variety of different angles, so it's a different game for him. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.